Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the May.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the May 19th, 2023 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel. This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask all of you to please silence all of your electronic devices. The Charter Authorizing Panel oversees the authorization, renewal, revision, and revocation of charters, and we welcome you today. Our goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. So I will ask that each of you that come to the microphone today to get right to the microphone, say your name for the record, and also state your title, and ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone for the benefit of the panel, the audience, the viewing audience, and the recording. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. So we welcome all of you, and we have a pretty lengthy agenda, but I expect to move through it fairly quickly. So with no further ado, let's look at the consent agenda. And panel members, do you have any questions about the consent agenda? If not, I'll accept a motion.
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Saraceni and a second by Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the consent agenda as submitted. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Action agenda item 1, please.
Good afternoon. Oh, wow, this is very loud. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's different seeing everybody in the afternoon than first thing in the morning. So today we have got 16 amendment requests on the agenda. So I'm going to go over our hearing procedures one time. We all know them. I think by now we probably all know them by heart. So the amending charter gets 20 minutes to present their amendment. I'm sure none of them will take that long. We have received no opposition to any of these amendment requests. And then after they present theirs, the panel gets an opportunity to ask any questions, and then we'll follow it up with the legal review after you guys have concluded any questions.
So, Shasta, we have a commonality between all of these. You want to give a little bit of background of why all of the charters are here today?
Sure. So most of the charters are here today. I believe actually every single one of them is here to rescind 617-2403, which is the teacher salary schedule, and they are rescinding that in order to comply with the LEARNS Act so that they can receive the additional funding to equalize teacher salary for that $50,000 that was part of LEARNS.
All right, thank you so much.
Oh, and Chair, you have to swear everybody in.
I've got my sheet and I'm ready to go.
All right, let's get
Mr.
started.
Coy?
Thomas Coy, DESE Charter Office. Our first charter amendment is from River Valley Virtual Academy. They are requesting to rescind the waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule. And I believe that Superintendent Jeffcoat, Principal Feeney, and Myron Hickman are here from River Valley. Are they online?
Hello.
There they are. They're waving at us.
All right, if you will stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed, and please state your name and title as you present.
My name is Jennifer Feeney. I serve as the principal here at the River Valley Virtual Academy. We are excited to be number 1 on the agenda. Thank you very much. We don't have a presentation necessarily. We have never utilized the waiver for salary. We have always followed the Van Buren School District as a district conversion charter, so we've never utilized the waiver, so there's really no impact on us.
All right. And according to our legal review, there were no concerns?
That is correct.
Okay. Hearing that, are there any questions from the panel? I'll accept a motion.
I move that we accept the
Motion to accept the the report and the waiver.
That's
Second.
right. I have a motion from Mr. Davis and a second from Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the rescission of the waiver for River Valley Virtual Academy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coy?
Our next item is the amendment request to rescind waivers for Arkansas Arts Academy. The same, okay.
Shasta, do we need to fill out voting sheets? Okay. One moment, please.
Sure.
Mr. Baldwin, if you'd like to read your voting sheet.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I support the waiver request to conform to the new state law.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for, and I support the waiver request to amend their existing charter.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request.
And Mr. Davis?
I support the waiver request.
All right. Number 2, Mr. Coy?
All right, our next waiver request is from Arkansas Arts Academy. They are requesting to rescind the waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule. Additionally, they have asked to rescind their waiver of gifted and talented. Is that correct? And I believe Dr. Roberts was supposed to be here. Is Dr. Roberts online? Or someone from Arkansas Arts Academy?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Dr. Roberts, thank you. If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
All right, you're ready to present your amendment?
So I present, we'd like to waive the teacher's salary as well as waive our waiver for, to allow us to have a gifted and talented program at Arkansas Arts Academy.
Would you like to elaborate on why you're rescinding your GT waiver?
We have identified students that would benefit greatly from having a focused and deliberate gifted and talented program. And we would like to move forward with providing those enriching and advanced educational opportunities for students.
Thank you so much. Panel members, any questions?
I did have a question.
Dr. Wright McMurray, get
If
real
you-
close to your microphone.
If you wouldn't mind just sharing just a little bit more detail on how you will identify those students that would qualify for gifted and talented services in your school.
Sure. We've been in contact with the Gifted and Talented Division at the Department of Education, and we're going to go through a screening process. First, we've had a school-wide survey of the current classroom teachers and some initial data review on possible students to be screened, and then we'll review teacher data, and then we'll provide a screening mechanism to identify the students and begin the rollout of this program in the fall.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I'll accept a motion.
I move approval.
Oh,
I'll make that motion.
hang on, hold on, Shasta's coming.
So sorry.
Oh.
I forgot to state that I was Chastity Wagner with Desi Legal earlier. But also, I don't know, we had to put a new legal review on the agenda. So if you had looked at the old legal review, it had that Dr. Roberts had not put in the correct standard to rescind that. I just wanted to clarify, in case you had looked at the previous legal review, that Dr. Roberts did in fact include the standard, so she is fully effectuating the waiver for gifted and talented. So I have no legal concerns about the rescission of these two waivers.
Thank you. Now I'll accept a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Baldwin and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the two waivers as requested by Arkansas Arts Academy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. If you'll take a moment to fill in your sheets. Mr. Baldwin, I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. I support the waiver request, the first to conform salary administration to the new state law, and then the second to add the gifted and talented program as beneficial to students.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind their salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act, as well as I support the request to rescind the waiver for gifted and talented services. They have a well thought out plan.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to rescind the minimum teacher salary and gifted and talented.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Yes, I voted yes, I support both waivers.
Thank you. Dr. Roberts, we're always excited to hear we're going to have a new gifted and talented program, so congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
All right. Number 4, Mr. Coy?
Number 3, I believe.
3?
The
Number
next
3.
request is from Scholar Made Achievement Place. Scholar Made Achievement Place of Arkansas is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule, and I believe Dr. Phyllis Anderson is online with Scholar Made.
Dr. Anderson, if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you may make your presentation.
Good afternoon. I do not have a presentation. We too are requesting to rescind our waiver to enable our charter to conform to Arkansas LEARNS. And we are asking that the panel approve our request.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Any questions? Hearing no questions, I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of the request.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the waiver as requested by Scholar Made Achievement Place of Arkansas. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, if you'll take a second to fill out your voting sheets. Mr. Baldwin, I'll start with you.
Yes, I support the request to conform with the Arkansas LEARNS Act.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind their salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Thank you. Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary.
And Mr. Davis?
I voted yes, I support the waiver.
All right, thank you so much. Number 4, Mr. Coy.
Bologna Pathways Academy is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule. I believe Dr. Riggins is online from Bologna.
Let's see her. If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. And you're recognized?
Yes, the Bologna Pathways Academy would like to rescind the waiver 617-2403 based in order to comply with the LEARNS Act. We originally requested this waiver anticipating that we might need it for non-licensed adjunct industry professionals, and we have not used this waiver, and we would like to request to rescind it.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Riggins? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Make a motion to accept the request to rescind.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Saraceni and a second from Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the rescission of the waiver as requested for Bologna Pathways Academy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. If you'll fill out your sheets. Mr. Baldwin, we'll start with you.
Yes, I voted to approve the request to rescind the compensation waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind their salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Thank you. Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary.
And Mr. Davis?
I support the waiver to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Thank you so much. Number 5.
Centerpoint Academy of Agriculture and Skills Trades is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule, and I believe Superintendent Cowart is on line with us.
Yes, I'm present.
All right, thank you so much. If you will raise your right hand. I'm looking for you. I see him. I'm sorry. I see you now. The font is very small here. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You're recognized to present.
I also have no presentation today. We also would like to rescind the waiver to participate in the Arkansas Learns Act. The Centerpoint School District has never utilized the waiver and has compensated the teachers of the Centerpoint Academy of Agriculture and Skills Trade according to the adopted district salary schedule and would like to continue to do so.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the panel? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Is that you? Okay. It just came out of the right side of my head. So I have a motion from Mr. Baldwin and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the waiver as requested by Centerpoint Academy of Agricultural and Skilled Trades. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. And, oop, get on the right tab. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I voted to support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
Voted for. I support the request to rescind their salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Thank you. Ms. Saraceni?
I voted for. I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Voted yes. I support the waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
Thank you so much. Number 6, Mr. Coy?
Future School of Fort Smith is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule, and Superintendent Logan is on, or Superintendent Boyd, I'm sorry, is on line with us.
Mr. Boyd, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're recognized to present.
Like most of the others, we have no presentation. We are requesting that we have this waiver rescinded in order to comply with the Learns Act and start making the minimum teacher salaries that are required underneath that.
Thank you so much. Panel members, any questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the waiver as requested by the Future School of Fort Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I voted for the waiver in order for the charter to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind their salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I voted for. I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary.
Mr. Davis?
I support the waiver to comply with the Learns Act. Yes.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Number 7? Are we on 7?
Yes.
7.
Arkansas Virtual Academy is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher compensation schedule. The charter is also requesting to change the instructional delivery method from virtual instruction to in-place hybrid blended instruction. And Superintendent Johnson is here with us, I believe.
If you will raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You have 20 minutes.
Hello, my name is Amy Johnson. I'm the head of school at Arkansas Virtual Academy, and thank you for the time. I will take just a little bit of time because the second request we have needs a bit of explanation. And I do have a presentation. I'm not sure if the panel can see that. But if not, oh, look, there it comes. Thank you so much.
There's your,
Oh, a clicker.
make sure it's on.
It appears to be. Let's try. Yep, it is. Okay. No problem. I'll go ahead and get started. The slides for this first piece aren't entirely necessary because we are also asking for the rescission of our waiver for the teacher minimum salary. I do have a bit of information on the slide, but ultimately I think what's important for the panel to know is that we have worked to always meet the minimum salary. However, we've not had a salary schedule in place, and that was the reason for our waiver, so we are working to put that in place to comply with LEARNS. All right, so I'll just remind the panel a little tiny bit about us. Arkansas Virtual Academy does service 4,117 students across the state in all 75 counties. And we are currently working very diligently, with the Department of Ed on really focusing on our literacy scores. We just came into collaboration with the department. We've been working with Tally Harp and her team, and that's been a really successful relationship. We're very excited to see our results. And then I always like to remind the panel about the CTE pathways that we have. And this will be a little bit of an important point when we get into our second ask of the day, that we do have the resources for all of our students to participate in about 20 different certification-driven pathways in 5 different industry areas. Excuse me. And this is the slide that I was referring to as far as the rescission of the teacher salary waiver. Just a little bit of data. We do have a draft schedule there for you, and the board will be providing final input and board vote for that in June. And then just some data on our salary raises over the last little bit, but also identifying that we do also provide annual bonus for our teachers, and that is a performance level bonus. So that's based directly on student outcomes. So not to move too quickly, but this is probably the discussion topic of my time. So we are requesting to add the ability to provide some face-to-face or in-place instruction for our students. And the goal here is for us to form a proof of concept. As this panel is well aware, as I stood in front of you not very many months ago, we're highly fine-tuned on our letter grades and looking for solutions and opportunities that could increase the academic outcomes of our students. And so this proof of concept is born out of that, but it's also born out of a very specific group of parents that currently have students with us that are very interested in the offering of some extra instruction that takes place face-to-face. So the idea of the ARVA Bridge was born out of this request. This is a little bit of a hub and spoke model, if you will. I will certainly not read through this entire slide for you. However, I think the things that are important to note about this concept and being able to offer this instructional method is not only the idea of blended learning, but the utilization of resources that ARVA does have available, especially through those CTE pathways, but also developing community partnerships that are strong where we have those engaged pieces. I think the other piece that I'm the most excited about this possibility is that growth and empowerment piece, not only for our students, but to collectively be able to connect teachers in both a face-to-face and blended, where our teachers virtually and in person can connect and rely on each other's expertise to grow their practice. So let me give you a little detail, because that's really where the nuts and bolts of this are. So we have a community in Sparkman, Arkansas, where we have existing students. I know most are familiar with Sparkman's concern about losing their school. And when the upper grades were closed down, several of those students came to ARVA rather than go to the resident district. And now the elementary will be closing in the coming years, so we have more students that have applied. And we have a very strong community group there. In fact, they have recently developed a 501(c) as a parent community organization. And they are very interested in providing a place, a location, for ARVA instructors to be able to provide some face-to-face instruction. So we currently have 30 students that are either actively enrolled or through the enrollment process or in the application process. And we have around just under 10 other students that have expressed interest. What the community is interested in is up to 4 days of in-person instruction. And I state it that way because these students are ARVA students. Nothing changes about that. This isn't I want to be very clear, this is not a brick and mortar charter. This is not a brick and mortar location for ARVA. This is a partnership where ARVA teachers and ARVA students have been provided an opportunity to come together. Up to 4 days is important because our students will have the choice. Our parents can elect to come 1 day, 3 days, 4 days, depending on what their family situation might need or what their student might need. They may have a student that's a high flyer that wants to come once a week for some enrichment opportunities, or they may have a student that really needs the intervention practice for 4 days. Our goal right now is to really hone in on math and literacy for the in-person instruction. It doesn't mean that there won't be other pieces, but where we really want to fine-tune and become experts in that face-to-face instruction is in those 2 areas. Now, again, with this parent-community relationship, this is a hosted location by the community. The community organization is organizing the transportation. They're organizing lunch for the students. Honestly, I don't even know whether that's provided, if they're planning on providing something, if they're asking students to bring their lunch. What is important for me that the panel hears is that ARVA's business will run just like ARVA's business always has. From a financial standpoint, we are not interested in getting into the brick and mortar business. I'm not interested in transportation plans or lunch menus. That's not what we do. So it's very important to me to identify and call out for all of you that that is not what this is. This is a community that has expressed interest to provide a place for our teachers to be able to be in the same room with students. Excuse me. We want to utilize a team teacher approach. So it will be a truly blended environment where some students are receiving math and literacy lessons based on our curriculum, and maybe other students at that same time are working virtually with a teacher for social studies or science or a club or whatever activity that they might have going on. We're currently building the schedule. As you can imagine, this is a little new, so we don't have a fine-tuned schedule, but the idea right now, based on the way the enrollments are coming in, is that we would move to a community school type environment as far as multiple grades in each classroom. So we'd have a K-3 classroom, a 4-6 classroom, and a 7-12 classroom. And again, those are subject to change based on the grade levels of students that are interested. We want to keep those ratios reasonable. Right now, based on the staff that we feel we can allocate there, we're looking at about a 10-to-1 ratio. So this is going to be a very community school oriented feel. As far as staffing is concerned, and the slide doesn't address it, but I know that that's likely a question, we already have some staff that live in the area, and then certainly as we have openings through our hiring process, if we can hire instructors that fit the bill and have the expertise that we need, and they are in that area, then certainly that would be, a consideration in our hiring process. So I think two of the biggest questions probably are why now and why here. So ARVA is getting ready to open a new facility right here in Little Rock, and we open August 1st. It's about a 48,000 square foot facility that we've been blessed to open, and so when you go back to that hub and spoke model, it makes sense that we would, as this location rolls out, that we would want to offer some of these same things if this is proof of concept, if we can really accomplish what we hope to in our new facility. And also we're at a very good place to fine-tune instruction and those inputs so that our academic outputs are what we want them to be. Our enrollment has settled, as the panel is very well aware. We grew significantly during COVID, and our weighted achievement is a factor in our grade card that we've been watching, and it has started to climb back up from that initial dip that we took in the spring of 21. So our weighted achievement is actually almost right at all three grade bands where it was prior. And then again, reading proficiencies has been a huge focus of ours, are showing gains for our in-year progress monitoring. And then why here? You've already heard a little bit about Sparkman and their families and the community that is primed and ready and really asking for this type of engagement. They also were just awarded by their resident district their school building in their area. So I received word of that. Again, not my details because that's the board and the community, but they do have a stable place to be able to house this. We do have some community industry as well there that's very interested in utilizing some of our CTE programs, trying to do some localized credit that builds skills back into the industries that are in this rural area to help develop the community and give it the ability to stand on its own again is really our goal. So that's sort of the long and short. I'm certain I did not answer all the questions that you might have, so I'm happy to field them. But again, in the interest of time, I definitely wanted to take a little higher level for you, but glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Dr. Wright McMurray, would you like to start with any questions that you have?
Thank you for your presentation and walking us through the second half of your waiver rescinding request. So I guess so the desire is that students would be on site somewhere at least 4 days a week.
Well, up to
4 days a week.
Basically, we would provide the opportunity for students to take advantage of some of that in-person instruction if they so choose. Now, the other thing I didn't mention is that even though the location is in Sparkman, if I had a student that lived in Little Rock, they're an ARVA student. If they wanted to drive to Sparkman and take advantage of this opportunity, they certainly could. So this isn't a situation where we're locking students or families into, you must attend. Our attendance is pulled directly from our system. And interacting with our curriculum and our virtual classrooms, all of that pulls automatically. So they would still be interfacing with the curriculum, the online curriculum. It's just that they would have the opportunity for math and literacy to have someone there, a facilitator there, to be able to instruct and provide any extra assistance that they need.
Okay. And just for my clarification, so there's not any type of allowance in your charter at this point that would give you an opportunity to have students to come on site. Say if they are having a struggle with the online instruction, they don't have the capability to come see anyone in person at this point?
Technically, the way the charter was created, no. The only instructional method that's written into the charter is a virtual delivery. Now, that's not to say that we don't interface with our students. We do have some what we call academic outings where we interface with our students and provide some extension opportunities, things that are harder to do virtually. Let's build a volcano or a solar system, something that is a little bit more hands-on. But the charter, the way it was created 20 years ago, it's our 20th anniversary this year, believe it or not, was for a virtual instruction method only. And so we wanted to be very careful and move forward wisely with the charter to ensure that whatever it is that we do as far as this in-person outreach, that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed.
Can I ask him? So I guess I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around it.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
So
We're used to it.
So if you were given the ability to have this opportunity, it would be statewide, or you, because I noticed in the presentation it said why here, and it's mentioned Sparkman. It didn't mention just generally that any student that is participating in ARVA would have this opportunity. It looked more like it was just really targeted towards providing the opportunity for Sparkman to have that in-person building.
Yep. Okay, so that's a perfect question, actually. So because this is proof of concept, what I don't want to do as a school leader is launch sites all over the state until we know that what we're doing is working, that it's moving the needle academically, and that we're doing the best service to our students as possible. So our intent for this school year is to stand up this opportunity in the Sparkman area. Happy to come back to the charter this time next year and let you know what the results were. We're going to tightly monitor and data point our efforts there. So all of our beginning, middle, and end of year assessments, certainly our state assessments, we'll be not only comparing those for growth for the students involved at Sparkman, but also to the larger in-group of ARVA proper and students that didn't have that same opportunity to interface face-to-face. So really, the whole idea is proof of concept. It's an innovation opportunity. It is not a request to do this statewide out of the gate. I think that would be a pretty foolish ask when we're trying something to see how it's going to affect not only the community, but also our academic outcomes.
Okay. Last question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So no more than 4 days.
Correct.
Is there a point to where if a student is consistently coming 4 days, and this is just trying to think through this, at what point is that student probably need to be an in-person instruction type of student?
Yeah, so I think that's a fair question. I think the important thing to know is we always have those conversations with our families. So even my students that are virtual, we have a compliance process that we move students through. I'm sure you can imagine that it's somewhat easier in some ways for students to hide virtually. We saw that during COVID, certainly. And so we have a process that we take students through that moves them back to what could potentially be best for them as a day in, day out, face-to-face brick and mortar experience. So it would be no different there, especially if we see things like, is the child well cared for? What happens on that 5th day to that student? Do they have someplace safe they can be? But typically on a higher level, what we look at is just academically. Do they need more? Do they need to be seen with somebody that can provide that instruction for all subjects? And so we will continue to monitor that even in this face-to-face environment through that same process that we use virtually. It's a pretty good process because I'm interested to see like how much more we'll learn seeing them face-to-face every day in those 4 days. But we'll still keep that process in place where we can conference with that parent if we do see things that we feel like they do need to move back to a brick and mortar setting.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Saraceni, any questions?
No, I think she asked me.
All right.
Sorry.
Mr. Baldwin, Mr. Baldwin, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Just a couple. So I guess my first question would be, you mentioned a hosted location, and it sounds like it's going to be a school building that's not being used. So my first question on that is who is the host? What legal entity is the host?
The parent organization in Sparkman is the one who actually has taken possession of the building, and so the community organization will be hosting us at this site.
So is that a legal entity, or is that just a group of parents?
It's a 501(c) that they developed.
Oh, okay. Do you, and I just don't know this, and maybe this is a question for Desi. What is the process of approval for a building where kids are going to be taught like this? Is there a state approval process that they have to go through?
Ms. Wagner is coming to the microphone.
Hi, Mr. Baldwin. So what I understand from Ms. Johnson is saying is it is not that this is not going to be a school. This is a group of parents getting their kids together, and ARVA is going to go in and do some on-site teaching with them at this group. It's just a group of parents, though, getting together. It's not tied to DESE, it's not tied to a school, and it's not tied directly to ARVA. So they're not going to charge ARVA rent. It's not anything like that, correct?
Okay. I guess now I'd ask another question. If it's not tied to any of this, why are we acting to approve or deny it? Because I think parents can do that on their own anyway, can't they?
Yes. So, Mr. Baldwin, it's not that you're approving them using the Sparkman campus. You're approving ARVA changing their instructional method, because this hybrid instructional method was not in their original charter, and any amendment to charters have to come before this panel and be approved.
Yeah. So I hate to be, I guess I'm just, so if this is a hybrid method, is it I guess I just don't understand if it's something that is informal, which it sounded like it was kind of an informal meeting of kids and parents and teachers. Why are we doing a formal action? And I guess you may have answered that by you're actually changing something in the narrative of your charter.
Yes,
that
sir.
would allow this.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Is that, and going back to Dr. Wright McMurray's question, this is just a change for Sparkman. I haven't read your narrative, so is it clearly stated this is only for Sparkman and not a global change to your?
It is clearly stated in the presentation. The request of the amendment to the charter is just a request to add the ability to provide this face-to-face instruction. So the intent is that clearly we would not expand this out, definitely not in this first year. But what it does by adding it to our charter, it does allow, to Dr. Wright McMurray's question, if I do have a student that is struggling with a concept and wants to meet with a teacher, it does allow me to do that, where I haven't necessarily been able to do that in the past.
Okay, so we are approving a global change to your program.
Yes.
If we. Okay. Well, so let me ask you this question. I would be interested in understanding the way we got here. Was this a strategy that you all were working on and wanted to do, and Sparkman just was opportunistic in this, or was this Sparkman approaching you all and saying we want to do this in Sparkman, and then you guys are reactive to them?
So I would say it's a little bit of both, if that's a fair answer. We have been doing a lot of research on blended and hybrid instructional models, especially since the time of COVID, and we did take on so many students and we had so many different needs within the periphery of our school. So we'd been looking at that. Were we ready, we're knocking on doors? No, we were not knocking on doors to make this happen. It was the group at Sparkman that already had students with us that said, hey, we would really like to have this opportunity here. And so it's a little bit of both in that it's something that we were investigating, and Sparkman was requesting like I said, our already enrolled families and parents. And so it just kind of became the perfect time to be able to launch an opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all my questions.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, and Mr. Baldwin, thank you so much, because your questions are along the lines that I have questioned as well. First of all, I think you've been fairly clear that students will be receiving instruction from teachers that have been vetted and have gone through your process and are enrolled with you all. My question gets back to the facility piece and the idea of risk and responsibility. If something were first of all, is there an MOU that will be signed between the school and the parent organization that discusses risk and responsibility?
I believe there will be. I know that there has been discussion to create an MOU for the instructional delivery and as well as the agreement that the building will be available, only from the standpoint that we want to protect the Sparkman community as well as ARVA. If it's not working out for either party, there has to be a protection in place there. We don't want to create a situation where we uproot students in the middle of something that they're very used to. So we will be looking at that. ARVA's legal counsel, I'm sure the 501(c)'s legal counsel will be looking at that to make sure that the amount of risk that is involved is mitigated and correctly assigned.
Okay, so those things haven't been worked out yet. Because what I'm getting to is, let's say you have a group of students, 10 or so, that does consistently come 3 to 4 days a week, right? And although, you know, they have that opportunity, I mean, it almost presents like a small class or pod or school. So then you start to think about schools, who's responsible for the safety of those students? And that's where I'm starting to have some concern. Because what I'm hearing you all say is, we're not interested in all of that. We're just interested in delivery. And so my question then becomes, if you have an organization that you're partnering with, are they going to assume the responsibility for student safety? And if so, what does that look like? How have conversations been laid out? All those things I think are a bit of a challenge with something like this. There may be some opportunities, you know, maybe someone in the department can clarify that we're doing this type of model somewhere else in which the school is not responsible for the facility, or they're not meeting on a school facility location. I mean, I'd be interested in hearing that, but this sounds to be just a little bit different in that way.
I would say that one of the conversations that we have had is from the aspect of, to your point, insurance. You know, we do provide insurance for our students for when they are at outings and that sort of thing. So looking at how those pieces line up. The community group just received the building in the last week. So they are working pretty diligently to figure out all those details. What's the insurance look like for us? What kind of you know, liability do we have, and how do we support that through that risk mitigation? So those conversations definitely are being had, but because the awarding of the building is so recent, they just have not been completely fleshed out. So I wish I had more detail and finite answers for you, but just the timing has not allowed us to get all those things lined out. I want to make sure that you understand, though, I am definitely interested in being responsible for these students. That is not our intention to say, oh, we're just going to show up and teach, and if they're safe, and if they're not, they're not. That's definitely not our intention or line of thinking here. But to your point, those conversations of where those lines are and who takes on the risk for the building itself, who takes on the risk for the students, we're still ironing that out just because the awarding of the building is so new.
No additional questions from me.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So I did have the opportunity to talk to Ms. Johnson, and I'm feeling good about our conversation because I'm just clicking off all of the things that we addressed. So we did talk about making sure that you had a thorough and clearly articulated MOU. And we did talk about making sure that you spelled out who's in charge of fire drills,
Yes.
insurance, extinguishers, you know, all of those safety components. But that because this is a community organization, it implies that there will be community members coming in to provide support and ensuring that background checks are done appropriately. And then also we discussed that this would not change your LEA number,
Correct.
your name, your address, or anything at all. So one of the final things that you and I talked about, and you spoke to it a minute ago, was you'd be willing to come back with a report.
Absolutely.
And if it pleases the panel, I would recommend that we put that in the record so that you do come back with a report, because as part of parental empowerment, I think that's what this is speaking to, and we need to really know what worked well, what didn't work well, what did you have to adjust. So I would encourage you to kind of keep a timeline,
Absolutely.
keep those notes of what happened. Don't wait till next May to write the report. Kind of write the report as you go, so that you not only have the data on the students as you described, but really the experience. Because if you do want to do this again and again, the more you can jot down those questions we need to ask, and the answers we got that worked and didn't work, I think just makes it easier to replicate in the future for others.
Absolutely. And as you were talking, it also reminded me, to Mr. Davis's question, one of the things that's also important for the panel to know is that through our state testing, we actually work with 23 facilities all over the state annually that we have to send our students to. We have to make sure that we mitigate that risk. We create crisis plans. We create tornado escape routes, fire routes. We communicate with the local authorities. Because of our nature, even though we have to test face-to-face, we still do have to implement that in these facilities. So, Mr. Davis, it will be a little bit of a different situation in being there consistently throughout the year. But we do have some of those processes in place to make sure that we handle those pieces. And absolutely, we will definitely come back and be providing some data along the way as well.
Can I jump back in here? Just a couple more questions. One, in those facilities or in those situations in which testing is happening, give me a little bit more. Where is that happening? And is it a sizable group of students that's happening with?
Yes. So we have, as I said, about 23 locations we use across the state. We try to test our students to where they don't have to drive longer than an hour before the assessment. And so these facilities are all sorts of different facilities. They may be a church, they may be a community center, they may be a local organization that has space. We have to vet these spaces because of the requirements of the assessment for large group and small group settings. Some of our larger sites, we will test between 50 and 100 students at a time in those sites. We test our entire 3rd through 10th grade population in about 10 days. So you can imagine those are large groups of students. We deploy our teachers in those situations. Each of those sites has a site coordinator who is responsible for contacting local authorities, working with the POC at the location, making sure that all of our security measures are met. We have an entire training for our site coordinators and for all of our staff that we disperse for the 10-day time to go and assess. So it's severe event planning is about the best way that I can describe it. And so we've had to learn over the years how to be in the presence of our students in a way that does mitigate some of the risks that clearly the panel is rightfully concerned about.
Okay, and so what I'm taking from that is in situations like that, you have the responsibility for those students in regards to their safety. And
yes.
With this change in charter, you're expecting to assume the same type of responsibility for students in this new location.
Yes, absolutely. And part of that is interfacing with the POC of the building, of the location, to ensure for testing, we walk those facilities. We look for things that could cause risk or cause issues for students. So absolutely, we would have that same level of responsibility and accountability for our students.
And when do you expect all of this to be hammered out? What happens if there is a walkthrough and the 501c3 says, no, that's not something we can do? So I'm just trying to figure out when will the T's be crossed and the I's dotted in regards to the MOU or whatever is necessary to ensure the safety of students.
It's a great question. So I expect the MOUs to be in place by the end of this fiscal, by the end of June. We'll start some walkthroughs in the next couple of weeks. The community organization actually takes possession of the building on July 1. So any risks identified would not be able to be corrected or mitigated until after that time when they do have possession of the building. But the absolute intent would be that all of those pieces would be in place before that first day of school. We ask our teachers back on August 1st. So that's probably as best of a timeline as any to say that, you know, we would have everything completely ironed out by that date.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Baldwin, did you have additional questions?
Yes, thank you. I'm you know, I like what you're saying. I like the innovation of what you're saying, but I'm nervous about acting today on this request without really having seen anything. We've talked a bit, and to me, this feels like a new way of doing education. And I would like to, personally, I would like to know more about who the parent group is, you know, what's their background, what qualifies them to be doing this. I'd like you to have an MOU that's signed that we could look at. And I know you're up against a deadline and you're trying to make all this happen, and I fully appreciate that. But still, there's just not a lot. I mean, to me, this feels like a precedent that we're setting, and I just don't feel like I have enough information to set a precedent that would, you know, one, amend your charter and then possibly others. How long would it take you to try to get some of this information back to us? Is it a 30-day process? And would that, if you do that, would that, and I don't even know if we can, you know, if we're able to do that. And this is just me asking this question, so that everybody else may be more comfortable than I am.
I'm certain that we would try to meet whatever timeline would create comfort in the with the panel, without having that conversation directly with the Sparkman Community Organization. I would hate to bind us into a specific deadline. Again, they just received the building, so I know that there's also still school going on there. So we're trying to, you know, be very respectful about that space and not get ahead of ourselves as far as that goes. But this piece is sort of the foundational cornerstone piece. If we can't, you know, provide the face-to-face instruction, then that's a different direction for them entirely with the building that they've been awarded and what the decisions that they may or may not make for their students. So that was why this was the first piece to sort of get clean and tidy. But I'm happy to come back and you know, share MOUs, share progress as far as risk mitigation with the building, any of those pieces, if that would please the panel to come back at the meetings this summer, just to ensure that you all, you know, have oversight of those pieces as they roll out.
Ms. Wagner? As our legal authority, do you have any concerns? Anything that you can express to help Mr. Baldwin?
So I don't particularly have any concerns because these are parents making the choice to bring their kids to this location. I understand the safety aspect of it, and I would like to see an MOU between the two of you. I definitely would like to see that. I mean, you could, as a panel, you could defer the vote on this section of their request until June, July. You could just ask them to come back and report on the MOU, and if the panel, for whatever reason, doesn't think that this is appropriate, then we can discuss that at that point in time, and ARVA work with them to figure out what we want to do in the meantime. It's really at the pleasure of the panel what you guys want and what you feel comfortable with. But I don't have any legal concerns with what ARVA is attempting to do.
And Ms. Johnson, if approved today, you would be willing to come back in July, August, whenever, to bring the MOU and the name of the 501c3 that will be running the community, I wouldn't even say community center, the community location. So you would be willing to bring those submit those documents back?
Yes, absolutely. I would hope that I could have an MOU for the panel's review by the June meeting, just to make sure that we have comfort not only from the panel, but that ARVA's poised and ready for the beginning of the school year, but then also that the community organization feels comfortable as well. So I think that we could definitely make that happen, and then any of the other pieces that the panel would like to review, certainly. I can be here in June, I can be here in July, whatever that would bring a level of comfort for the panel.
Panel members, any other questions? Discussion?
Just one more point, and it's actually a point of clarity. What it sounds as if we are discussing today, let's take away the facility piece, right? What you're really asking us is just to approve a change in your model, right? That would allow face-to-face instruction.
Yes, that's correct.
That I think it's clean. I think it gets muddy when you say we have a relationship and a partnership, and there's a group of parents and they just got a building, and whoa,
Absolutely.
That's where it starts to get a little touchy, right? I think all those things that we're talking about, MOUs and all that, are important. But if it is a situation in which we're talking about, obviously, the waiver for the Arkansas Learns, and then the approval of a waiver that will allow face-to-face instruction, I think that's clear and clean, and that makes sense to me. But I think you've now introduced a couple other things that I do think we should think about following up on, or at least laying eyes on, as a responsible body.
Absolutely.
I agree. I agree.
All right, so I'm hearing a consensus here from Dr. Wright McMurray and Ms. Saraceni. Ms. Wagner?
If the CAP would like to schedule check-ins, even if that's something that the CAP would like to do to, after school starts a month in, we're going to get the MOU, we're going to get all the stuff on the front end, and then if you guys would like to have ARVA come and check in with you about this, we can even do that as well. That is an option for the panel, if ARVA is amenable to it.
The future charter panel could also make an on-site visit.
Absolutely, we would love that.
Madam Chair, let me ask, I need more legal advice. So if we act on this today and change, and I agree with Mr. Davis on the nuances of this, but if we act today and let them go forward, and then they come back and give us a report that we don't like, and let's say there's something that we don't like, can we act to take back our decision today at that point?
So we can have them amend their charter back if it's not something that you agree with, yes. We would have to work with them to do that, but yes, we can do that. You are the panel and you have that discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions, conversations, discussion, wonderings? Dr. Wright McMurray?
So just for my clarification, it seems like that we're moving in the direction where we would be considering rescinding the waiver for the salary and allowing the amending of the charter for a hybrid instruction. So we're not approving or disproving the addition of the Sparkman and all the other pieces.
In the
Okay.
Sparkman, it's just then if you want to ask them to come back and provide, if you want to ask Ms. Johnson to come back and present her MOU and to provide some reports along the way, because this really is a pilot, an innovative pilot. So if you want to come back and get periodic updates from her, she has said she's willing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, may I ask a
Sure.
question? So we would put that in
In your motion.
Okay.
All right, if there's any other discussion, I'll accept a motion. Oh, here comes Ms. Wagner.
I just want everyone to be comfortable. You could also limit the approval of changing the instructional model to just 1 year, if that would make you more comfortable as a panel. you could limit it to 1 year for a review at this time next year, so she could come back at that point in time, because she'll know exactly how the method has worked out to approve it going forward from there.
Can I say something?
Yes, that's what we're here for.
So I guess for me, I do find value in allowing there to be the hybrid model, because if you do have a student that the virtual instruction is the best option for them. However, if they do have a need to be in front of someone to have that touch, I do find value in that. So I don't want there to be this thought that that's not what I'm understanding or appreciating. It's just the other piece that I just needed more clarification on. So from my standpoint, I'm okay with if they would like to do that, because I do find value in having at least the option to be able to bring children in front of you if you need to do that. So.
All right, I'll accept a motion. I'll help you.
Okay, that's what I'm good with.
Yeah.
Say it out loud so I can.
I don't know quite what to say out loud, but.
Shasta will help us. Go ahead.
Okay, so I move approval of the request to rescind the waiver for salary to comply with the LEARNS Act. And I support the request to amend the charter to allow for a hybrid model, and would like for the school to agree to provide documentation of their desired partnership with the Sparkman School District periodically. Periodically being,
So you'd like for Ms. Johnson to come back with the MOU,
yes.
and then you would like for her to come back with a report.
So I would like for her to come back with the MOU once it is established. And I think we thought that could be within 30 days.
She's gonna try, so
Okay.
we'll,
So with a goal being within 30 days of reviewing the MOU agreement between ARVA and Sparkman. And then end of the year, a review of the outcomes of the pilot.
do I have a second?
I second.
Can I maybe ask Dr. Ratman-Murray to put one more thing in her motion?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, your motion is great. I would love to have some background information on the parent group.
Of course.
I mean, I'm just, I live in a small town, and I know that sometimes parent groups can be good and sometimes they can be bad. And I would love to know that this is a good parent group.
Absolutely.
Please don't
Dr.
make-
Wright-McMurray, are you willing to amend your motion?
Yes, as long as I don't have to start from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Saraceni, are you willing to second that?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Dr. Wright-McMurray has made a motion, and Ms. Saraceni has seconded the motion to rescind the waiver for teacher salary and to approve the amendment request to change the instructional delivery method to hybrid on the on the basis that you will provide documentation of the MOU and some background information on this community group within 30 days if possible or soon thereafter, and that you will schedule with the charter office to bring an end-of-year report at the end of the first year that has documented not only your data but all of the steps along the way.
Absolutely.
Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Oh, any opposed? I don't guess, no one left. All right, your motion passes, and if you'll take a moment, we will write in our voting sheets. And I'll ask the charter office to mark those days on your calendar to reach out to Ms. Johnson for those reports. And Ms. Saraceni, I'll start with you. See you're finished writing.
I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary schedule and support going to a hybrid model when necessary to
Thank
meet
you.
all students' needs.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I support the waiver request to rescind the compensation factor compliance to comply with the Arkansas LEARNS Act. And then I also support the amendment to the charter to allow for a hybrid learning model as described, subject to receipt of an MOU and background information on the parent group.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act. I also support the request to amend the charter to offer hybrid instruction with a contingency that MOU and parent group, and that's as far as I got, will be reviewed within 30 days and a report by the end of the academic year.
And it won't actually be within 30 days.
Okay.
It'll take a little bit longer.
Okay.
Before our next meeting, I think, somewhere in there. And Mr. Davis?
Voted for. I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act and the amendment to allow hybrid instruction.
Perfect. All right, well, congratulations, Ms. Johnson. We look forward to hearing more, learning more, and blazing new trails. All right, Ms. Simmons, number 8. Do y'all want to take a break after this one? Let's have that. We'll kind of be about a little over halfway through. Okay. All right, Ms. Simmons.
Good afternoon, Dory Summons, Deputy Charter Director. Next on the list is Academics Plus. Academics Plus is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule, and they are requesting an additional waiver of code 613-636 of the LEARNS Act concerning employees receiving a hearing before the board upon dismissal. And we have Dr. McGill here.
Dr. McGill, if you'll raise your right hand, please.
Mr. McGill.
Mr. McGill.
Hadn't got that far yet.
All right, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're recognized for your presentation.
Did you make the change?
So just real quick on Academic Plus Charter Schools legal review, I had accidentally put in 613, 636 DE. It should have been D1E. Specifically, they are narrowing the waiver down to just the notice and hearing requirements to be put in employee contracts. That's all they're waiving. They're not waiving the entire code section. It's just that because, to my understanding, they handle that all at the superintendent level. So, and I have no legal concerns about either of those waiver requests.
So would you like to explain what you just said? In layman's terms?
So essentially what Academics Plus is waiving is they are not going to put notice and hearing requirements for their employees in their employee contracts. They're not going to have that in their contracts. That's what they're asking for a waiver of because they handle all of that at the superintendent level. He makes all those decisions.
Gotcha.
But that's all they're asking for a waiver of that section. It's just that one little part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we are asking for 617-2403, same reasons for as everyone else. We have met the minimum teacher salary standards since 2010, continue to do so, and want to exceed those standards as we go forward. Paragraph D1E of 613, 636, as was just said, well, first of all, we've had the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act waived since 2001. I've been at the school since 2010. But it has been waived actually the 22 years of existence. And at this time, as was just said, as the CEO hires and terminates employees. So when a teacher is hired or an employee is hired, the contracts or the at-will employment agreement, actually we don't have contracts, we have at-will employment agreements that serves as those contracts, goes to the superintendent, I sign, CEO, I sign, and then the employee signs. They do not go to the board. And that is what we're trying to waive, is that one paragraph that says they have the right to go to the board. And my board supports this unanimously. Over the last, since 2010, we've had employment issues, and I see it as two things. My job is to make sure that employees treated fairly. There should be no surprises when it comes to termination unless they did something yesterday that deserves termination today. But if it's a performance thing over time, they should know what's about to happen. And then the next thing is I have to be there to make sure we protect the institution. We don't want lawsuits, and when it comes to employment hearings, we want to be able to be successful in those. So those are the things we look at to make sure we're moving forward correctly. And over the last 13 years I've been there, we've had no employment lawsuits, and we've had 2 EEOC complaints of terminated employees, and both of those came back with no findings from EEOC. So our system works, it's successful. The reason our board considers this important is they went through an employment hearing in 2011, I believe it was, and after that they said there's no reason for them to be involved in that. That was their opinion. We don't want that anymore, and it should be the CEO who we're holding accountable for the charter school to make those decisions and do what's best for the students and the school. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Panel members, any questions? All right, and I'll accept a motion.
I move approval to, lost my train of thought,
Rescind 2.
rescind 2 of the waiver requests currently held by Academic Plus Charter.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Dr. Wright McMurray and a second by Ms. Saraceni. Excuse me. To approve the rescission of the waivers, both waivers as requested for Academics Plus Charter School. Although,
Come, point of order. I'm not rescinding the 613, 636.
thank you for that catch. Rescinding 1, adding a waiver request. Thank you. So let me restart. So I have a motion by Dr. Wright McMurray and a second by Ms. Saraceni to approve the request to rescind the waiver for teacher salary and to add a waiver of Arkansas Code 613, 636 for Academics Plus Charter Schools.
D1E.
D1E. All right, 613, 636, D1E.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dr. Wright McMurray, I didn't hear you.
I said aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. No one in opposition, your motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, and if you will take a moment to fill out your voting sheets. Mr. Baldwin, we'll start with you.
Yes, I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act. I also support or the amendment to the waiver. I also support the waiver request pertaining to notice requirements as it relates to employee practices.
Thank you. Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary. I support the new waiver of the school personnel hiring and placement decisions in Arkansas Code 6-13, 6 D1E.
Mr. Davis?
I support the request to rescind the waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act and to add the additional waiver.
And Dr. Wright McMurray.
I voted for. I support the request to rescind the waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act. I also support the request, and I got tangled up there, the requirement to include teachers and teacher's contract, but, yeah. Okay.
All right, congratulations. We're going to take a quick 7-minute break. 1:20, we're going to start at 1:27. I know, remember, is our teacher training ever given 10, they take 15?
No kidding.
Ms. Summons,
Recording in progress.
number 9, please.
West Wind School for the Performing Arts is requesting to rescind the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule, and Ms. Timmons is here representing West Wind.
If you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much. You're recognized.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Westwind. We are requesting to waive our teacher salary schedule to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Panel members, any questions? Then I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of the request.
A second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the teacher salary waiver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I lose Mr. Davis? Okay, then I'll vote. Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. If you'll give us just a moment to record. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act regarding teacher salary. Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
And Mr. Baldwin?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wagner?
Ms. Kaufman,
Yes.
this is Mr. Davis. I'm actually on by phone. I'm having some connectivity issues. I support the waiver request to rescind as well to comply with the Learns Act.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Summons?
Graduate Arkansas is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule. And we have Ms. Hatley here.
Ms. Hatley? If you will raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You're recognized.
So we're not really using the waiver, but I'm here today asking for rescission of the waiver, would allow Graduate Arkansas to align with the Learns Act.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Hatley? I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of the request. Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to rescind the waiver of 617-2403. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And if you'll give us a second. Graduate Arkansas. Mr. Baldwin, if you'll start, please.
Yes. I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind the waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary schedules.
Mr. Davis?
I support the waiver request to rescind to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Ms. Hatley. Number 11, Ms. Simmons.
Okay. Hope Academy of Northwest Arkansas is requesting to rescind its waiver of the teacher minimum, the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule, and to change the grade level served from K6 to K4. The enrollment cap is 60, and we had Miss Katie Drake on the Zoom.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Drake, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You're recognized.
I do not have a presentation for the waiver amendment, but Hope Academy does request to rescind our waiver for minimum teacher salary to comply with the LEARNS Act. We have updated our salary schedule to support this change. Additionally, Hope Academy requests to amend our charter to move from a K6 to a K4 school. I do not have a visual presentation, but I do have talking points on that if you all would like those at this time.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So as a reminder, Hope Academy is a charter school designed to serve students who have experienced childhood trauma. We have small class sizes with a 1 to 10. We have one class per grade, and 10 students per class served by one teacher, and we have one paraprofessional in each classroom. When we opened our charter, our intent was to go through 6th grade. Prior to this year, concerns arose around that, primarily because of the transition from our program to a junior high setting in 7th grade. With our local schools being 5th and 6th grade for middle school, our students would go straight from our very small program into their local junior high. We did not feel like that was setting our students up for success. Keeping in mind that middle school teachers and the middle school model is really uniquely prepared to make that transition for students from the smaller classroom size of elementary school and the really classroom support model of elementary school into the broader supports that are offered in middle school, with students needing to know how to change classes, that large group free movement that happens beginning in middle school, lockers for many schools that kids start to use, and the lunchroom freedoms that are provided in middle school settings. We did not feel like coming out of our very small 1 to 10 classrooms and transitioning into junior high, having missed that middle school period where those teachers and that staff are uniquely qualified to really set those kiddos up for success and help them make those transitions. We did not feel like that was going to be best for our students. So another concern for 6th grade initially was that from a structural capacity standpoint, we really are out of room to add a 6th grade within our school. Once we got open and recognized how much space was going to be required, many of our rooms are already multifunctional, not our classrooms, but our other spaces. And we really do not structurally have the capacity for 6th grade. So initially we had planned to be a K-5 school. When we added our 5th grade classroom this year, a lot of our 4th graders last year transitioned out because our local schools, primarily Bentonville and Siloam, where many of our kids come from, that model is K-4 elementary and 5th grade starts middle school. And so many of our 4th graders transitioned out. We ended up starting the year with only 5 of our 10 5th graders, and those numbers didn't change. While we had a couple more transition out at semester, we got a couple of new kiddos in. So declining enrollment for 5th grade is a concern for us. It's difficult to fill those spots once they're open because it's only that 1 year turnaround. It's a short turnaround for families, and so that's creating another transition for a student doesn't often make sense to families unless they're just in a very difficult situation and need a placement for their student. There are currently few of our fourth grade
Ms. Drake, we've lost sound. Try again.
I can hear you, but I'm not.
I can hear you as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can hear you again. Thank you.
Okay. So our concern is that currently our fourth graders, most of them are also planning to transition to their local middle school for next year for fifth grade for the same
Recording
reason.
stopped.
The recording has stopped. I'm not sure if that's an issue.
Hang
I'll
on
pause.
just a minute, and Dan will tell us if it's an issue.
Recording in progress.
We're good. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So our concern is that we're going to have the same issue again next year, where we have few students enrolled in our fifth grade program because parents and students want to transition into middle school with the rest of their community. Given that it is not financially a sustainable option to have a full-time teacher and para, which is our model, to serve a partial classroom when we are only a 1 to 10 classroom size as it is. We do anticipate full enrollment with wait lists in all of our other grades. That has not been a concern up to now. This really seems to only be an issue with that transition from elementary to middle school that happens with our other local schools and our families wanting to participate in that same transition, as well as our concerns for our students not being prepared for that larger environment if they don't have the opportunity to participate in those local middle schools.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Drake. Any questions? Questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move we approve both requests as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Baldwin and a second from Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the rescission of the waiver of 617-2403 and to change the grade level served from K6 to K4 for Hope Academy of Northwest Arkansas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. While they're filling out their voting sheets, Ms. Drake, I'll just remind you that the Public School Accountability Office will be reaching out to you on Monday to make an LEA change request. In LEA Insights, it needs to be in by next week. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, you're changing your grade span, but we'll need to have that in there, into our system. All right. Mr. Baldwin.
Yes, I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act. I also support the request to amend the charter's authorization from a K6 to a K4 program.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I voted for. I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Learns Act. I also support the request to amend the charter to allow grade level change from K6 to K4.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary and amend the enrollment from K6 to K4.
Thank you. And Mr. Davis?
I support the waiver request to rescind to comply as well as the change in grades.
Thank you. All right, well, congratulations. I know you're doing fabulous work up there. I've been to visit, and if you haven't been to visit, you should schedule a visit. It's amazing work. Thank you, Mr. Drake.
Great. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Number 12, Ms. Summons.
Friendship Aspire is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule. And we have Dr. Tran on the Zoom.
Dr. Tran, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're recognized to present.
Sure. I don't have any presentation. We're just rescinding the waiver to comply with the Loans Act.
Any questions from panel members? I'll accept a motion.
I move we support move we approve the request to rescind the waiver.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Mr. Baldwin to approve the rescission of the waiver of Arkansas Code 617-2403 for Friendship Aspire Academy, Arkansas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Baldwin?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Loans Act.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary.
Mr. Davis?
I support the request to comply with the Learns Act.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Tran.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Thank you. Ms. Summons, number 13.
Okay. Exalt Academy is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule, and Ms. Long is on the Zoom.
Ms. Long, if you'll raise your right hand. Ms. Long, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, I see you now. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. We too would like to rescind the waiver to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
All right. Panel members, any questions? I'll accept a motion.
I move that we approve the request to rescind the waiver.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the rescission of the waiver of 617-2403 for Exalt Academy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin, if you would read your vote sheet.
Yes, I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Loans Act.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act.
And Mr. Davis?
I support the request in order to comply with the Learns Act.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Ms. Long. Number 14, Ms. Summons?
Thank you.
Okay. Haas Hall is requesting to rescind its waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule, and we have Mr. Shopmeyer on the Zoom.
Correct, yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Shopmeyer. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
You're recognized.
We'd like to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act by rescinding our waiver 617-203.
All right. Any questions from the panel? I'll accept a motion.
I move that we approve the request. Why can't I say that word? I move we approve the request.
Gotcha. Second?
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni to approve the request to rescind the waiver of 6-17-2403 for Haas Hall Academies. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Loans Act.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the Learns Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the Learns Act on teacher salary.
Mr. Davis?
I support the request in order to comply with the Learns Act.
Ms. Summons, number 15. Thank you, Dr. Shopmeyer.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Academy is requesting to rescind the waiver for the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule. And we have Dr. Bugrick, who's the superintendent, and we have Ms. Ratterman here also as representatives for Lisa.
If you will both raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You're recognized.
Good afternoon. I am Bethany Ratterman, the Director of Communications for Lisa Academy. Thank you so much for having us. We are just here to rescind the waiver 617-2403 to comply with the LEARNS Act. That's it.
Panel members, do you have any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Make the motion to move,
To rescind.
to rescind the request. That's why I'm doing them. Okay.
Second.
I second.
I have a motion from Ms. Saraceni and a second from Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the request to rescind the waiver of 617-2403 for Lisa Academy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I support the waiver request to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary.
Mr. Davis?
I support the request in order to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. If you missed the STEM festival, it was amazing.
As always.
It was just awesome. So if you missed it, come back next year. All right, number 16, Ms. Summons.
Next, we have ESTEM, and they're requesting to rescind their waiver of the minimum teacher salary compensation schedule. It looks like we have some representatives from ESTEM on the Zoom.
Is Mr. Milholland available? I see his office. Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. If you'll raise your right hand, both of you. Thank you. Let me get to my sheet. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. You're recognized.
Hi, I'm Angie Miller. I'm the CFO for ESTEM Charter Schools, and we are requesting to rescind our waiver on minimum teacher salary so that we can comply with the LEARNS Act and receive the associated funding.
All right. Charter panel members, any questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of the request to rescind the waiver.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray and a second from Ms. Saraceni. I've stopped being able to spell your name. To approve the request to rescind the waiver of 617-2403 for ESTEM Public Charter Schools. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I support the waiver request in order to comply with the Arkansas Learns Act.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the request to rescind the salary waiver to comply with the LEARNS Act.
Ms. Saraceni?
I support the waiver request to comply with the LEARNS Act on teacher salary schedules.
Mr. Davis?
I support the request in order to comply with the LEARNS Act.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Milholland. All right. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there any other business before this panel today? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Saraceni and a second from Dr. Wright McMurray to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Recording stopped.